partner with us and help build the Liberty Machine. We're asking you to partner with us for as little as $5 a month. Now, you can go up from there. You can go to $10 a month and get extra features, or $25 a month and become a Conduit Media Insider. But for $5 a month, you can really help us out. You can get extra content. You can see what we talk about on sets like this, and I promise you, you won't be disappointed. Thanks for watching. Back in a moment.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
The program, thank you so much. This is hour number 2. My name is Paul. You've found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We are building a Liberty Machine here. For those of you watching on Facebook Live and over at paulharrell.com, we got kind of a 3-person split screen in here. I want to welcome back to the studio. We have Secretary of State Mark Martin is with us. Mark, thanks for joining us, sir.
Thank you for having me on again.
Absolutely. And we have Pastor Iverson Jackson is with us, who's going to be at the Arkansas State University Student Union giving the keynote speech for the Arkansas State Young Republicans. Iverson, welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you, Paul.
Really glad that you could be here. Let's start with you.
Okay.
The speech here, this is 7:30 tonight, and Arkansas State University Young Republicans, as well as State Representative Dan Sullivan, bringing you in. And the topic is One Nation Under God. Tell us a little bit about that.
One Nation Under God, that's that part, One Nation Under God, that's what we are. That's what our founders envisioned when you look at the Declaration of Independence, when they talk about we owe these truths to be self-evident, that, that we are endowed by our Creator. So they acknowledge that we are a creator. And then they go on to tell us that our Creator gives us certain inalienable rights, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Among, them, we have many more than that, but those are the ones that they named. And so those only come when you're one nation under God. You look at any nation that disavows God, they don't have the liberty that we have, and that's why we have the illegal immigration problem that we have. People are not fighting to get out of America. They're fighting to get in America because this is where freedom lives.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. And there actually is, a lot of people don't realize this in today's day and age, but, the idea of founding a country, recognizing the existence of a higher power.
Right.
You look at totalitarian states, and they are the higher power. They don't recognize that. So it's kind of about establishing the country in humility.
Absolutely.
Versus, saying we have it all figured out. So there's a theology there.
Absolutely.
About the Creator.
Right. This is what guided our founders. And I know you'll have people say, well, you had founders that didn't even believe in God, or, they were deists and so forth and so on. That does not mean that they did not understand and agree with the principles of liberty that are found in the Holy Scriptures. And that's where people are missing it. They're missing, like, for instance, with Thomas Jefferson. When you look at his monument in Washington, D.C., I've been there many, many times, and you'll see statements that he made about God, and you would think this man is a Pentecostal. And here people are saying that he wasn't, that he didn't believe in God. Well, that's about as far from the truth as you can get. He read his Bible, he knew what the Bible says, and he understood that these liberties that we enjoy today, the few that are left, only come from God and not from man. And if something comes from God, then no man can take it away from you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I want to turn now to Secretary of State Mark Martin. So Mark, what brings you here to this neck of the woods for this event tonight?
I was just invited up by my friend Dan Sullivan, and I figured I'd come up and show some support for him.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, one nation under God, that's something that I think a lot of people here in Arkansas, it really resonates with. Yes. And you see what the state of the country is now, and there's no question that we're kind of experiencing what looks like to be a slow moral decay. Talk about that a little bit.
Well,
or your thoughts on that?
One of the things that I would actually start with is whether or not we recognize it, or any country recognizes it or not, we're under God. We're either under God's judgment or we're under His blessing. Whether or not we want to recognize His sovereignty in the matter or not, that's really the starting point. I'm reminded of a quote by Abraham Kuyper I'd like to read to you. He says, "There's not 1 square inch of the whole domain of human existence over which Christ, who is sovereign over all, does not cry, mine." What's he talking about whenever he's developing these ideas? Well, the overall idea that is going on here is everything that's going on is under God's authority. How does he then delegate his authority in the world? And God first delegates who has more authority over you than anyone else. Ultimately, everybody would say God. But then, you move away from God, and then you're talking about the authority that an individual has over his own self-discipline.
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. We lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
I love my state. I love the Republican Party. It's a heart thing. Ask my mama. Mother, stand up. It's my mother. This is about the future. I love you. Thank you for being bold enough to let me speak when the pressure was on to silence me. She deserves a standing ovation.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thunderous applause. Thunderous applause. That audio you just heard was Jan Morgan from the Mississippi County Lincoln Reagan Day dinner. And it was quite an event. It was a packed house. Jan Morgan was responsible for that packed house. Her message resonated, and that to me was the most powerful portion of the speech when she referred to the pressure that was mounting for her to be uninvited from that event. And yet, listen to what she said, not to silence me. She's talking about essentially a pretty basic concept, the freedom of speech, and how there were people in the Republican establishment trying to stop that, trying to stop her ideas. And I can tell you that we have new developments after that speech and after that amazing event that resonated so well with the people of Mississippi County. Word has spread, and unfortunately now you have the Sebastian County Republican Women's Group has now uninvited Jan Morgan to speak at their event, signaling that the Republican Party is very worried of ideas, and they are scared that the truth may get out. Joining me now to talk more about this is the lady of the hour. Jan Morgan joins us. Jan, welcome back to the program. Jan, do we have you? We may. It says. I mean, we may have lost Jan. Let's see if we can get Jan back on the line. Let's see. I don't know if maybe. Definitely. Okay, got disconnected. So she'll be calling back. Stay tuned because she's calling back in. Here she is. I can hear the phone ringing right now. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, just if we have some technical difficulties, but we're getting Jan. Here she is. She's calling right now. It was an amazing event. Let me tell you, it was an amazing event. There was I met a ton of you there. That came up to me, shook my hand. It was so encouraging, number one, that you guys are listening to the program, that the message is resonating. And I know a lot of you, all of you were there to see Jan. Again, speaking of Jan Morgan, here she is. She's on the line with us. Jan, you did a great job at Mississippi County.
Thank you, Paul. It's easy to deliver the right message when it's the truth and when it's the message that the people want delivered. That's what I keep trying to tell the Republican Party. This is not about Jan Morgan. It's about the people of this state. The people spoke a resounding message when they elected Donald Trump in the state of Arkansas. They were trying to send a message to the establishment, and apparently the establishment didn't get it, so I'm trying to send it again. And so when they shut me out, they're shutting out the people of this state.
Mm-hmm. And we just we did talk about the news that broke earlier on your Facebook page, or it was out there, that the Sebastian County Republican Women's Group has now uninvited you to speak at their event. And I'm telling you, this is in direct result of how your message is resonating with the people. I mean, listen to the applause that we played there, where you said, thank you for standing up and not silencing me, and people went nuts because they all knew that the establishment didn't want you there last night, and now we have some dominoes start to fall. We have people trying to fall in line, it seems like.
Exactly. And, that's going to hurt them more than help them, because what they think that I will do is just silently cower down and get my feelings hurt, say, oh, the Republican Party doesn't want me in. But see, what that does is validate what I've been saying all along, that we have a problem within the Republican Party of this state. And I talked about this openly in my speech. I said, look, I'm not here to divide the party. The party is already divided in a very big way. But here's a novel idea. There's a place that we can all come together. I'm here to help save the party, and I'm telling you that place that we can all meet is the Republican Party platform, right? The Republican Party platform. What's controversial about that? Well, I'll tell you what's controversial about it. You've got a progressive governor who doesn't want to lead the state that way, and you've got people who are riding his coattails who are scared to buck him. So I'm out there throwing the grenades, and the conservatives in the Republican Party who are too cowardly to stand up are egging me on, saying, you go, Jan, tell them, you tell them, but let us hide behind you and generate the results of that. So, I can't single-handedly save the party, but I tell you what, the people of this state can. And the Republicans of this state, every time they uninvite me to an event, I get more support from Republicans in that area. And they say, well, you know what? Forget the Republican Party. We'll have an event for you, and we'll be separate from them. And so that's what we're going to see happen. Yeah,
there's no doubt that that's what's going to happen. So talk a little bit about, your message. I know this is part of your listening tour in a lot of ways. And I think what resonates with your message is the fact that you experienced something that's personal, that no one can take away from you when you were down at the Marble Palace and you saw the way the process was working, and you saw how, if everybody knows, and I've said this for a while, if the people knew what they were really doing in the people's name that they never find out about because nobody wants to cover, the local politics, the people would react accordingly and make another choice. And, you're considering being that other choice, and your story really resonates with the crowd.
Yes, because I went to the state capitol with the assumption that, I know there's politics as usual, but I assumed that there was going to be some accountability and transparency there, because after all, the people own the Marble Palace, and the people there who are supposed to be representing us, we're paying their salary. So I was appalled to discover, number one, of course, we don't have a revenue problem in Arkansas. We have a spending problem. I was appalled at the waste in our government with Republicans at the helm. That has to be fixed immediately. And then I discovered how they're able to get by with this is the lack of transparency. I discovered in judiciary that they have this group voice vote thing rather than a roll call vote. So the citizens of this state have no way of checking into the government website and saying, hey, I want to see how my Republican representative voted on this issue because this shouldn't have passed. That's not Republican Party. We have control of the House, the Senate, and the governor's office. Republicans do. So we should be moving. The conservative movement should be overwhelmingly taking the state back to fiscal responsibility, to deregulating businesses, to cutting taxes. I mean, there are so many things that this government should be doing under Republican leadership, and we're going the wrong direction. I just went to find out why, and I saw it. And I the things I saw and heard in the hallways and the deals being made behind closed doors, it was just revolting. And then when I went into House Judiciary to whip up on those boys, I took them to the woodshed, as those of us in the South would say, and I'm talking about our Republicans. And when I did it in a very public way, that's when thousands of Republicans across this state said, we need you to run for governor because you're the only one who is not afraid to stand up to the establishment, and you're the only one with a large enough base to give this guy a run for his money. And so that's where we are. But speaking of money, Paul, we have to have it to run. That's going to be the deciding factor. That's why we're in exploratory, to see if the citizens of this state are going to back us with their finances as well as their word.
Yeah.
It takes money to fight.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I know you guys do have a website for that, right?
We do. Well, you go to the Facebook page, Jan Morgan for Governor. It's there. I post it on my page. Every time I post anything about Arkansas, which is constantly, under there I put the link to donate. So, but we don't have to have what Asa has. He's got $1.5 million in his coffers, but we can fight with a lot less, just like we can run a government on a lot less. But we have to have the bare necessities.
Yeah, I mean, you absolutely do. But your message is a winning message. I mean, it's just demonstrated by last night, and I know you've got other speaking engagements and other places that you're going to be. I think it is.
But I bet they're not going to be Republican engagements. It's going to be interesting to see how many Republican dominoes fall after that speech. When they saw the response of that crowd, I mean, that's the first time Doyle Webb, the state Republican Party chair, was there, which, by the way, I got reprimanded.
Yeah, tell me about that
table when I started talking about one specific example of waste, $20 million tossed, toward Department of Human Services on a contract when the Legislative Review Board that suggested the bid go the other way. When I started talking about that, I mean, the voice from that table was, careful, careful. I mean, it was loud. Everybody in the front 3 or 4 rows heard it.
Weird.
And I even acknowledged it. I looked over at the table and said, oh, I'm being reprimanded from the floor. How interesting is that? So, they're trying to silence me on so many fronts. And the bottom line is, when they're that afraid that they don't want the people to hear your message because they know if the people hear it, the people will support it, and then they lose their gravy train. So fear is pushing that whole let's uninvite Jan to speak agenda, and it makes them look bad, not me.
Yeah, and so much of this defense is also because Asa Hutchinson has such a terrible record. And that's just
his record is egregious,
yeah.
Paul, and I'm constantly posting it on my page, and he can't argue with it. It's all fact-based. That's the crazy thing. He's asking for another term as a Republican. Now, if he would run as a Democrat, he'd probably win the Democrat ticket,
yeah,
but
he would.
He's not.
Well, I mean, for example, so you mentioned the contract, the DHS contract. The current contract provider for this particular service was doing the job, $20 million or more cheaper, and yet Asa went with the one that was more expensive. And the legislatures were just saying, hey, we don't want to do this. He went ahead and did it anyway. When you just point out something like that, and that's basic, and to Little Rock, that's run of the mill. What's $20 million? But when you point out something like that, that's kind of minutia that they don't hear about, but it's very black and white from the Republican Party platform standpoint. It's like, why would he do that? And that is what you say, Jan, don't talk about that. You can't talk about that. That's how bad his record is. That's how bad it is.
Exactly, and unfortunately for them, I don't. They can't. All they can do is try to silence me, and so I expect a lot more of this, Paul. And fortunately, though, for me, you've got Tea Party organizations across this state and just Republicans who are mad at their own committees in their own counties for canceling me. They're planning events for me. So what are they going to do next? Call these people and say, we're going to come after your business if you have an event and host Jan Morgan? I mean, that's what we're getting down to, I'm afraid.
Yeah, and, you hate that for the Sebastian County, Republican women's organization because, I mean, you're a woman, Jan, and wouldn't that be great for their event? But they don't want to have you all of a sudden. That's just so
honestly,
sad.
Paul, that was the most disappointing uninvite I've received so far because it is women. And how often is a woman in a position that I'm in right now to truly bring about change and change toward the Republican Party platform, which is what all these women are supposed to represent? It is most unfortunate, and I know some women in leadership that are really upset about it, and I understand there was quite a bit of arguing about it behind the scenes, but in the end, the cowardly side won.
Well,
let's just don't have her.
I do want to say this. There is a Northwest Arkansas senator, it's come to my attention, going around and saying that at committee meetings or Republican events, it's against the rules to criticize a current elected official. during their meetings, and I will tell you that is blatantly false. Conduit Media has checked into that. It's not against the rules. There's no such rule that exists, even on the county level or the state level. That is a complete lie. But I have a feeling that, Jan, is also what is playing a role here. There are people in the establishment who are going around telling these committees and groups, that it's against the rules when, in fact, it's not.
But, Paul, the thing is, what the Republican women should have done, what I would have done if I were a leader of the Republican women of this state, I would have simply said, hey, Jan, look, we've got a problem here because you're a candidate and, or a potential candidate. Can we not go into the campaign issue? Can we make this about women and the conservative movement and a positive message just about women moving forward and what, how much we've grown as conservatives and what women are doing on the state level and nationally. I mean, look at Kellyanne Conway. Women are making great strides in the Republican Party. Well, Jan Morgan is not a big feminist. I'm just not. Never have been. Don't desire to be. I am not. But I could have kept a speech to that realm for that event had they asked me or had they allowed me. But no, they don't want me to appear at all. They don't want other women in the state to see me because they might actually like me and agree with me and say, you know what, we want her to represent us.
Yeah, we could follow her. She's a leader.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
sad. Well, Jan Morgan, I just want to say it was great seeing you at the Mississippi County event. And, again, kudos to Mississippi County for standing up to the pressure. You hit the nail on the head. Your speech, I listened to it because I know I couldn't hear the whole thing. But, I mean, I listened to the recording. It's really, really good stuff. And I appreciate you standing up, Jan. And I appreciate,
Thanks,
and I know you're not going to sit down. I mean, I don't care how many Republicans uninvite you. You're going to keep going.
You heard my speech in my speech in House Judiciary, and you heard in my speech the other night. I said I started this gunfight, and I don't leave in the middle of a fight. They'll either have to take me out or I'll win, one way or the other. So
Jan
not
Morgan,
over till it's over.
That's exactly right. Jan, thank you so much. We'll do it again soon.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay.
Okay.
All righty. Folks, that was Jan Morgan. She's a potential gubernatorial candidate, and she gave an amazing speech. And what does the Republican establishment do? They do the only thing they can do, and that's try to silence future events where there's big crowds. Does that sound familiar at all? Does that sound anything like the election of Donald Trump at all to anybody out there? We've got to take a break. You're listening to the Paul Harrell program, the Liberty Machine that we're trying to build here at the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Will return in just a moment. Give our Facebook page a like for those of you who are listening on Facebook Live. Back in just a moment.
The Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Buy, sell, and trade at Triple R Pawn in Ash Flat. Firearms, computers, sporting goods, musical instruments, tools, jewelry, and everything else you can think of. It's all at Triple R Pawn at the Light in Ash Flat. Gun enthusiasts, log on now to triplrpawn.com and browse their amazing inventory. That's triplrpawn.com. You can also call them at 870-994-PAWN. That's 870-994-7296. Let the great team at Triple R Pawn help you find what you're looking for. That's Triple R Pawn at the Light in Ash Flat, triplrpawn.com, or call 870-994-PAWN.
If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Do you need conservative legislation killed?
Or do you need policies enacted that ensure government growth?
Then you need to get nephewed.
Nephewed. Hi,
I'm nephew number 1 of uncle, nephew, and nephew, attorneys at law. I'm not a lawyer, but I am a senator.
And I'm nephew number 2, and I am a lawyer and also a senator.
Are you the victim of a recent accident in which the voters in your community mistakenly elected a limited government conservative who is now actually implementing the ideas he or she campaigned on?
That's right, nephew number 1. Don't be a victim of democratic elections any longer. At Uncle, Nephew, and Nephew, we are committed to killing limited government legislation and promoting bills that increase the size of government by using any tool at our disposal.
Because sometimes the truth of the matter is, principles get in the way of pragmatism.
Just listen to some of our great testimonials.
Ever since I've been using the nephews, all my special interests have been served. As long as you make sure your contract says lobbying services are prohibited, then the legal services of uncle, nephew, and nephew are legal. Trust me, put the nephews on them.
It came out of nowhere. I was blindsided last election cycle when my well-funded and paid-for politician lost to some grassroots limited government voters. But then I hired the nephews, and they killed all the conservative policies the voters wanted. I got nephewed.
I got nephewed too, and so can you. Uncle, nephew, and nephew will accept compensation via campaign contributions. Put the nephews on them.
PHP Parody. Want to go back and listen to previous shows? Apple users can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. Don't have an Apple device? Head on over to paulharrell.com and click on Podcast. It's free and available 24/7 because the Liberty Machine never sleeps.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, hey, attention, our listeners in Carroll County, Arkansas. You need to know a few things. Number one is that Conduit for Action is coming to the Carroll County Republican Committee. Did you know that? That's exactly right. That's right. Conduit for Action coming to the Republican County Committee in Carroll County, okay? And that is tonight at the community room in Berryville. It is the Carroll Electric Community Room in Berryville. That's on Highway 62 across from Walmart. So if you're in Carroll County and you want to hear some truth, go hear Conduit for Action talk about the legislative session and what are the good bills, what are the bad bills. You're going to meet like-minded conservative. You're going to meet some great Republicans there, I can assure you, Carroll County. And, you know, maybe go, who knows, maybe go for the fireworks. Sometimes it's this whole freedom of speech thing. What are you afraid of? All of you Republicans in the establishment, if you're right, what are you afraid of? Right? If your only defense is, well, they just want to move too fast with the conservative agenda, which we could debunk, I could debunk, because you're actually going left. You're not actually moving anywhere to the right in many regards. Not all, but in most, in the key points. It's a joke. Right? If your only defense is, well, they're just extremists, then you're going to silence. If you don't have an argument, you're going to move to silence the opposition. I mean, what's happening right now with with conservative talk radio? What has been happening with the George Soros groups or Media Matter groups? What have they been trying to do since the election of Donald Trump? They've been trying to kill conservative voices, to take conservative voices off the air. Even Facebook. I mean, I was watching a talk radio guy I love to listen to, Joe Pags. Love Joe Pags. Absolutely love him. He was going over how Facebook, a page his size, 300,000, is actually unliking users from the page, and they don't know it. And so I started looking at my stuff, and we've gotten some unlikes when it's odd to have unlikes. I would just encourage you guys, if make sure that you haven't been unliked from the page without you knowing it. Back in a minute.
Welcome those of you watching at paulharrell.com, Facebook Live, or our YouTube page, The Paul Harrell Program. This is the set where we shoot our Wednesday weekly videos for our Patreon subscribers. And if you want to get on board and get extra Paul Harrell program content because you want to partner with us, you believe the show has value, you want to help us keep the show on the air, you want to help us grow the show, you want to help us make videos like this one even better, then you need to seriously think about subscribing to Patreon. It's patreon.com/thephp. That's patreon.com/thephp. Get extra content today, partner with us, and help build the Liberty Machine. We're asking you to partner with us for as little as $5 a month. Now, you can go up from there. You can go to $10 a month and get extra features, or $25 a month and become a Conduit Media Insider. But for $5 a month, you can really help us out. You can get extra content. You can see what we talk about on sets like this, and I promise you, you won't be disappointed. Thanks for watching. Back in a moment.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Now, Kuyper looked at things from spheres going out from oneself. As you go farther and farther from oneself, your personal authority diminishes, and you get a situation where more and more things are delegated to God to take care of. You hear some of the Austrian economists call it the invisible hand. Some people call it providence or whatever. So when we begin to talk about ultimately where we're at, some things may come and go. We may not be one nation. We may not be a nation at all. But one thing that we will be is under God.
Yeah, that's very well said. And you just think about where the state does come in. You talk about delegating authority. That's certainly a part of the whole situation. Right. You have Paul in the New Testament saying, "Hey, we hope that we are able under the state to go about the gospel in peace."
Right.
So there is certainly evidence out there of
absolutely
where it's easier. When you're freer, things are a lot easier. I mean, versus the totalitarian history that we have in the 20th century alone.
Well, and that's what's unique about this country is when we begin to look at the delegation of authority from that perspective, we see that it's centered on individuals. Every individual is endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights. What we see here is a biblical pattern for government taking shape. Whether or not you believe in a creator or nature, I think it's evident in nature even that individual rights are what are supreme, because the individual is the one that's delegated the most authority to supervise himself. And of course, what's supervising ourselves? That's taking responsibility, right? So the pattern that the founders put together, whether or not they recognize it as a creator or as natural law, it's what's naturally the order of things, and self-government is the first order. And when you say the smallest form of self-government is individual.
That's correct.
So what you were pointing out there is a very, very deep theological concept.
Yeah. So we're talking with Secretary of State Mark Martin and Pastor Iverson Jackson. Iverson is going to be at Arkansas State University tonight with the ASU Young College Republicans, giving this talk about, one nation under God. It's very exciting. So tell us a little bit about, if you can, if you go all the way back to the founding and you go to what all of the sermons that were preached up and down the colonies, beforehand, it had a lot to do with what we're talking about. Being an
broadcasting across Arkansas and holding politicians accountable for what they say and do. The Paul Harrell Program.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. Thank you so much for being with us. Man, I had a great time. At the Mississippi County Republican dinner. It was great to meet everybody, see everybody. I was sitting with, I believe, County Judge candidate John Nelson. I was sitting at his table, got to meet him and his family, spend time with them. And I said this when I introduced Jan Morgan at the event, and I'll say it again here publicly. I have roots in Mississippi County. And my mom was from there. My grandparents, I have the fondest memories of going to Blytheville and
seen my grandparents, and so the table I was sitting at. I met John and his wife Angie Nelson actually, because they've been taking care of, and at the drop of a hat, my uncle, who is the brother of my late grandfather, that still lives in Mississippi County. They are amazing people because they have taken care of him in such a way, just in a way that you would assume blood relatives would take care of somebody. And it's just great. That's how I met them, and I was honored to be there with them. Folks, the telephone number, if you want to call us or text us, is 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. So I want to give a little update here. We had, let's see, I guess it was a segment last week, I think, on the Arkansas Dental Board, okay? And a lot of people were kind of upset at Asa Hutchinson's appointment, okay? Asa Hutchinson appointed a guy that the Arkansas State Dental Board did not recommend, or I'm sorry, the Dental Association did not recommend to sit on the dental board. And the reason this was a huge deal is because the Dental Association sent out a letter criticizing Asa Hutchinson's ignorance or ignoring who they recommended to appoint, and turns out they recommended a guy who actually has been, has not had the best career, or he's appeared before according to the letter, appeared before the dental board on 3 occasions for doing things that he shouldn't be doing. And this has caused a lot of people a stir, right? And as a matter of fact, I'm trying right now to find the letter here because I had it right here in front of me, and now I do not. But I'm going to find it. Hang on, give me 1 second here, because I know I have it literally like here we go. So this is what the letter said, and then I'm going to give you some context on this. We have a person on Facebook that made the letter public. I just received this message from the Arkansas State Dental Association. Governor's office breaks with tradition, rejects ASDA nominee for dental board. In an unprecedented move in modern times, the office of Governor Asa Hutchinson has rejected the recommendation of Arkansas State Dental Association for the Arkansas State Board of Dental Examiners, and instead appointed a dentist who has been found in violation of Arkansas law on 3 separate occasions, including overprescribing narcotics. As in years past, ASDA recommended a dentist who has been vetted at the district and state level. So here's the thing, and this is minutia. And I'm not some big licensing board guy. As a matter of fact, I don't like licensing boards. But the Arkansas Dental Association, or the board, they've got 5 districts in the state of Arkansas, and ideally you want one from each district. Well, so Northeast Arkansas vetted, according to this letter, Dr. Lauren Harmon. She was up to replace Dr. Bob Carter of Batesville, whose term expired in September of 2017, and instead the governor's office appointed a Dr. Richard Smith of North Little Rock, who is not even a member of the association and current employee of Monarch Dental. Monarch Dental. Now think about that for a second. Monarch Dental, what does that mean? Okay, so I've done some research. Conduit Media has done some research. Conduit Media has discovered that this is what happened, and I have this based on an anonymous source. So take it how you will. I have a feeling I'm going to have other sources come forward willing to go on the record after I go ahead and report this. Okay? This is an anonymous source. So, in the medical community, not just in the dental community, but in all of those subsets, you've got pharmaceutical, optical, okay, dental, just medical in general, right? There are national organizations that represent medical, pharmaceutical, optical, and their businesses. They are corporate entities, and you'll see them. They'll open up clinics, and you know that this is a clinic that, has other locations, but not other locations like where you have the sole proprietor who is the dentist. That this is a corporatized, out of state, potentially different locations and that sort of thing, right? And a lot of times they set up shop in really nice parts of town and everything else. And so not necessarily your family mom and pop owned medical practice. That's all I'm trying to say. These types of organizations, they exist. They're here in Arkansas, and guess what? They want representation on the medical boards. So what happened is, for a price, you can get on. So somehow they, the way it's explained to me, there's a donation made, and Governor Asa Hutchinson, without vetting this man at all, this is who the corporate entities wanted. They didn't vet him. They didn't know who he was. They didn't know he's never been a member of the Dental Association. They didn't know his record. He gets on. After this happened, the letter I just read to you was sent out to the Dental Association, and then it was made public. Now, once it was made public, guess who's now aware of how mad a giant constituency here in Arkansas is? Governor Asa Hutchinson. So this all gets circled back. And listen to this. This is what's crazy. I am told that when Asa Hutchinson was confronted with his decision, he pleaded that he was, quote, innocently stupid. Now, maybe that's not how he said it, but that's how, I'm telling you anonymously sources, that's what it was told to me, that Asa said, tries to be apologetic by saying I'm innocently stupid. I mean, that's kind of like a leading from behind, by the way. So there was a change in the law down at the Marble Palace this last session that enables some wording differences, I'm told, that enables you to be able to try and challenge if the governor doesn't appoint who you want, that you can try to challenge it in some way. I'm told that the Dental Association is not going to do that. Instead, the Dental Association is now going to try to get the legislature to block it. Good luck with that, Dental Association, but this could be huge news. This could be a sign that the people are sick, that the representatives are going to stand up to Asa. The Legislative Council could, in fact, say, hey, we don't think this is, the appointment here. We don't think that you should have somebody sits on the board who's been brought before the board for, prescribing narcotics in a wrong way. It's just something to think about, but all in all, folks, this is not an isolated incident. That's what you need to know. This has happened with optometry. This has happened with the plant board. It happens over and over and over again. And if you know the right people to ask, listen closely. If you know the right people to ask about who's getting appointed to these boards, everybody is saying that the people who are being recommended by the association, so if it's, in this case, it's the Dental Association, right? In other cases, it's would it be Farm Bureau? The agriculture one escapes me. But you've got the agricultural people, the farmers that know what they're doing, specifically appointments to the plant board. This is who we think should be on it. And Ace saying, no, I want this guy, or I want a Monsanto guy, all right? This is happening all over. And if you dig into it, I will tell you, I will go on record, and I will say if you dig into it, people will say, if you want your guy on this board or that board, it's about potential donations. And that is why, now, and think about this. Of course that's what's happening. Of course that's what's happening. I mean, if you have, listen to this letter again. Okay, this was the letter that was sent out to the State Dental Association because their recommendation was ignored. In an unprecedented move in modern times, the office of Governor Asa Hutchinson has rejected the recommendation of the Arkansas State Dental Association. In an unprecedented move. This is, and look, let's be clear what the Arkansas Dental Association is. Lobbyists, okay? Let's be clear. It's what they are. They lobby for their profession. That's what they do. Okay? So does the Arkansas Optometric Association. They lobby for their profession. That's what these people are. So I'm not trying to, by any means stretch it. I'm not trying to say, because I can promise you there's legislation I bet they've argued for that's protectionist that I would disagree with vehemently. Okay? However, in the context of the politics of the day, these people in their industry, members of these associations, they're recommending people that they trust to be on the board of governors. I don't necessarily like the whole system. Again, licensing boards, you've got to have them in some degree, but what we have done is we have allowed some of these licensing boards to make up rules that are not based on the safety of the public, but based on protectionism. But that's a whole nother issue. Okay, that's a different issue. This is about ASA getting into power and not selecting the people that traditionally this board recommends, and that's how you get on. That has the potential to make a lot of people mad. It is making them mad, and these are voters, right? How many dentists do you imagine, the percentage of dentists in this state that vote, right? It's got to be 90% of dentists in this state vote. I mean, we're talking about professional, affluent people, educated. I bet you they participate in the electoral process. What about you? This is a story here, and we will see if the legislature does in fact say, hey, cool it on this particular nomination. If I'm a betting man, I'm going to say no, because so far, the only thing that they are good at is being lapdogs to whatever the governor wants. Something to think about. Yeah, Gary on Facebook writing, always follow the money. Hey, by the way, Gary, it was a pleasure to meet you in person for the first time, Mr. Gary Epperson. I'll give him a shout-out. Got to meet him in Mississippi County. That was fantastic. Good to meet him face-to-face. Coming up at the top of this hour, we'll be talking with Senator Linda Collins Smith. Joe, let me preview this real quick. Can you show this Facebook post of Asa Hutchinson in camouflage real quick? Look at this post. This is ridiculous. This was tweeted. This was retweeted by one of the governor's nephews. You can see it right there. Senator Jeremy Hutchinson retweeted Asa Hutchinson. As Arkansas's governor, I have and will protect every part of the Second Amendment. And it's a picture of Asa holding a shotgun in the woods, very similar to his campaign commercial from 2015, which, I mean, there was really no talk about the Second Amendment. There was no specifics. It was just Asa shooting a gun awkwardly. I don't know if he actually shot or not. You know what Asa has done? He has chopped through a piece of wood when he opened the Taekwondo Center down in North Little Rock. Now, if you wanted to see an awkward video, that's awkward. He punches through. It's the ribbon cutting ceremony. I mean, he gave the Taekwondo Association of America all this taxpayer money to build a dojo in North Little Rock. And then they had the ribbon cutting ceremony. They made him an honorary black belt, and then they had him punch through a board. And you got to go see this video. It's fantastic. It's absolutely a fantastic video. So he punches through it, and I mean, I was surprised. The people on Twitter, were saying, "Oh, this is amazing," and I was thinking to myself, I don't know if you watched the same video I did, but it just didn't seem very. It didn't seem like it was Steven Seagal punching through, or Chuck Norris. Of course, you can't really even talk about Steven Seagal now, right? He's now, it's open season on allegations right now. He's been implicated in treating women poorly, and that is an understatement if you go read the. But you know what I mean. It didn't just seem very martial artsy to me. It seemed more artsy to me. The phone number, call us, text us, 870-275-9799. 870-275-9799 is the telephone number. I can say that. I have a bachelor's of fine arts in musical theater. So, see here. We have any more? We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about what's going on across the state. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to the Paul Harrell program. Thanks for listening. Back in a moment.
The Paul Harrell Program.
Order. In the name of public safety, order. This meeting of the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing state licensing boards is called to order in the name of public safety. What's on the agenda for the day?
We have before us today, per our summons, a representative from the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing cosmetology, cosmetologist, and all things hair care and beauty.
Right. Of course, I remember this. In the name of public safety, ma'am, please state your name for the record, and thank you for appearing before us today.
Yes, my name is Cosmo Glamour Gazette, and I'm here in response to a letter our state board received claiming we're in violation of the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing state licensing boards. In the letter, you claim that our licensing board is in violation of your rules and regulations because we have failed to, quote, pay tribute, end quote, and therefore have not been granted a license by the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing licensing boards to, quote, shake down the Arkansans who have an interest in cosmetology, end quote.
In the name of public safety, order. Yes, Miss Gazette, we sent you that letter because you have not obtained our approval in the form of a license from our board to distribute licenses to the professional class your board strives to protect. In the name of public safety, of course.
Of course.
So, in the name of public safety, and just so we can get this for the record, you do admit and agree with our board, the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing state licensing boards, that you have not obtained a license, thereby revealing your board of cosmetology to be operating outside our rules, regulations, and authority?
Well, sir, I'm not sure our board agrees that we need a license from your board to continue to shake down, to look out for the public safety of Arkansans.
In the name of public safety.
In the name of public safety.
Well, it seems we are at a bit of an impasse if we are not in agreement that your board owes us tribute.
Sir, maybe we could ask and see if there's a bureaucrat in the house.
Ah, yes. Yes, that would shed some light on things. A bureaucrat. Yeah, in the name of public safety, is there a bureaucrat in the house? We need someone to resuscitate and confirm our authority as the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing state licensing boards.
Here.
Ah, yes. Oh, good. Come to the end of the table in the name of public safety and state your name for the record, please.
Yes, I am Despot Ringleader, the head of the Bureau governing all state bureaus, and it is my testimony the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing state licensing boards does have the authority to demand tribute in this situation and will provide in exchange a license to say they can continue to operate in the name of public safety.
It's hard to argue when the public safety is put at risk. Very well. We will consider Mrs. Ringleader's testimony as truth, and we will pay tribute in the name of public safety, of course.
In the name of public safety.
In the name of public safety.
He puts the Paul in politics. The Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
All right, welcome back. I tell you this, it is so cool. This is the coolest thing to me, and you know, it dawned on me just really now as I'm watching our Facebook live feed, okay, and I'm watching people from all across the state, okay, from different corners of the state, okay. You know, you're watching people from you know, the western part of the state, you know, Crawford, Sebastian, Scott, you know, Logan County, Washington County, Benton County, these counties, and, you know, many of these people were over all the way into East Arkansas. I mean, the furthest, you don't go any further east in the state of Arkansas than Mississippi County. And you go all the way to Mississippi County, and people from Mississippi County are meeting people from this other, and they're like-minded. That's what's so cool about this. They're like-minded. They actually agree with what's going on in the state. And the description of what's going on in the state. So, you know, what you hear on this program, what you hear over at great websites, blogs like conduitforaction.org. So They agree with that, and then they agree with the prescription, which is talk about it, do something about it, right? And so you have these people who are saying, and on Facebook pages are saying, hey, it was nice to meet you, it was nice to meet you, and I just feel like that's something. I feel like there's something there. There's something ready to boil when you have people, because let's be honest. I mean, I've grown up in East Arkansas my whole life, right? And they all, and there is a difference, right? I mean, it would be easier to teach school children in East Arkansas whatever you're going to teach them based on maybe a row cropping agrarian analogy, right? Then maybe in Western Arkansas in the hills or in the great places like Mountain Home or others, you might maybe do something more with the topography and the cattle and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? There are differences. And the state is extremely diverse. And it's just good to see people come together based on the stuff that we have in common, which is liberty. It's liberty. And more of it, not less. Voluntary cooperation, not forced. Lower taxes, actually seeing lower taxes. And yes, that may mean less money going into the government, which means you have to prioritize and not spend so much. It's extremely encouraging. Very much so. I will say that it was also good to see. It was great to see Jan Morgan there. It was great to see. It was also great to see Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin. I thoroughly enjoyed his speech. He said a wonderful thing about veterans, the importance of it, how honoring our veterans is now something for sure that has to be taught. That was good. And then Tim Griffin's economic message is always great about what needs to happen in Arkansas, right? It's what needs to happen. And the whole time I'm listening to Tim Griffin articulate very well like he does and talk about how we've got to get spending under control, how we've got to, make Arkansas competitive with other states via tax cuts. The only thing I kept thinking was that's not happening now. And as a matter of fact, because we've overcommitted ourselves with all of these entitlement programs, it's really going to be hard for that stuff to happen now because of the people who are in positions of power to actually do something about it. And I'm talking about the establishment Republican legislature. It's very, very difficult. But it was a fantastic event. Matter of fact, Joe, cue up Jan Morgan one more time. This was Jan Morgan at the close of her speech Saturday night in Mississippi County. Packed crowd. Take a listen.
I love my state. I love the Republican Party. It's a heart thing. Ask my mama. Mother, stand up. It's my mother.
Stop for a second.
This is about the future.
Back it up. I got to meet Jan's mom as well. That was great. I took a photo with Jan Morgan. She's probably listening on Facebook right now, as a matter of fact. And that was great to get to talk to her. And one of the things Jan said was that's her speech teacher. Her mom was her speech teacher. You can hear people say, she did a good job. Okay, keep going. I want to get to this.
Heart thing. Ask my mama. Mother, stand up. It's my mother. This is about the future. I love you. Thank you for being bold enough to let me speak when the pressure was on to silence me.
I mean, just an immense applause. And it actually was... Yeah, it was great. Okay, go ahead. You can bring that down. So, yeah, it was immense. And the news is, of course, that after that amazing speech and that amazing reception, the Republican Party of Arkansas puts pressure on Sebastian County to cancel their event. So Jan Morgan has now been uninvited to her Sebastian County event. And that's a shame. After you heard what she just said, thank you for standing up to the pressure. And yet another one bites the dust in Sebastian County on our western border. We'll see you for hour 2.
Rush, Glenn, Sean, and Paul. This is Jonesboro's 1013 FM News Talk, KBTM.
Welcome those of you watching at paulharrell.com, Facebook Live, or our YouTube page, The Paul Harrell Program. This is the set where we shoot our Wednesday weekly videos for our Patreon subscribers. And if you want to get on board and get extra Paul Harrell Program content because you want to partner with us, you believe the show has value, you want to help us keep the show on the air, you want to help us grow the show, you want to help us make videos like this one even better, then you need to seriously think about subscribing to Patreon. It's patreon.com/thephp. That's patreon.com/thephp. Get extra content today, partner with us, and help build the Liberty Machine. We're asking you to partner with us for as little as $5 a month. Now, you can go up from there. You can go to $10 a month and get extra features, or $25 a month and become a Conduit Media Insider. But for $5 a month, you can really help us out. You can get extra content. You can see what we talk about on sets like this, and I promise you, you won't be disappointed. Thanks for watching. Back in a moment.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Individual before a holy God, being responsible.
Right.
You know, that's something. And then all of a sudden you start to think, well, if everybody is equal under God, then how come there's a royal bloodline that's somehow special, more special than everybody else?
Yeah. You know, go back to the Constitution, what you were talking about, and the connection with one nation under God. What our Constitution really is a collection of sermon topics. When you go through it and look at it, it's a collection of sermon topics that were preached up and down the colonies, that, as you stated earlier, up and down the colonies, that our founders just start putting these things together because our government, you know, in Romans it tells us that governments are ordained by God, God being the higher power. So he delegates to man governments, but those governments are also to be under the auspices of God, and that makes it fair for everyone. That's how Thomas Jefferson came up with what he did. Let's think about this. I can say this is what's true. You can say, no, this is what's true. So there has to be an objective truth. We call that absolute truth. And this is what you get when you're under God. The truth does not have any friends, but it makes a lot of enemies.
Yeah.
Okay? So you can be a truth of the friend, but the truth is not going to try to be your friend. It is what it is.
Yeah.
So that's what we had. Remember that when we were growing up, we heard the term the golden rule. Well, where did that come out of? That came right out of the scripture, when Jesus said, do unto others as you would have them to do unto you. That's an objective truth. It doesn't matter how much money you have, where you live, what color you are. So all these things come when you're under God. So you have to maintain that. That's what makes this nation so great, this ideal. And the aligning of truths, when, you know, people talk about the founders and, you know, owning slaves and so forth and so on like that. But the very words that they wrote, the truth, you know, had to line up with the truth, and eventually the truth caught up with this nation, and we've, you know, that's what I mean. That's what I'm talking about, the Civil War.
Yeah.
So all these things began to unfold because it's part of the truth. And as Jesus said in Matthew 5:6, if you hunger and thirst after righteousness, you shall be filled. In other words, if you are a truth seeker, the truth will eventually come forward.
Yeah.
And so our founders understood that, and that one nation under God is what makes everything fair and equal for every person. Now, I love what Mark was talking about, the personal freedoms. There's nothing like personal freedom. It's remember the parable that Jesus told about the talents. He gave 1 5, 1 2, and 1 1. And each had an opportunity to do according to their own ability whatever they desired to do with those talents. That's what personal freedom is. If I want to become something special in life, then I have the right when a nation is under God to be that. And if I want to just stand on the side of the road and hold a sign, well, I also have the freedom to do that. You can only get that when you're under God. We're not in a caste system where you have to be what the government tells you want to be.
Yeah,
so this is what's so powerful, one nation under God.
So we're going to be back here in just a moment with Secretary of State Mark Martin and Pastor Iverson Jackson. I have a few more questions. One of them has to do with, and this is just my own personal kind of thing that I've come up with, or thoughts that I've had about the state of the country today, and how the younger generation is able to recognize injustice. They just don't know what to do about it. So we're going to be back in just a minute, folks. Don't go anywhere. The Liberty Machine rolls on next. Come back to the program. Joe, I'm just saying I really admire you. I'm having to produce my own show, and it's not easy. So I'm just letting you know, thank you for everything, Joe, our board up. I'm in the command center post because this is where our third mic is. All right, joining us now, we've got Secretary of State Mark Martin, who's back with us. Mark, thank you for being on the show, sir.
Thanks a lot.
And also we have Pastor Iverson Jackson. Now, he's going to be at this event, One Nation Under God. The College Republicans at A-State are hosting him. Also, the Arkansas Family Council Director, Jerry Cox, will be there. So that's going to be fun. Admission is free. It's tonight at 7:30 at Arkansas State University on the third floor of the Student Union. Seating is limited, but come one, come all right now. I want to talk a little bit about Iverson Jackson. He is the senior pastor of Zoe Bible Church in Little Rock. You received your bachelor's in business.
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. We lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hey, folks, welcome to the program. It's hour number 2. Thanks so much for being with us. My name is Paul. This is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We're building a liberty machine here. We want you to be a part of the program. One of the ways you can do that, call us or text us 870-275-9799. Or if you want to help us out, monetarily, feel free for $5, $10, or $25 a month, become a Patreon subscriber. That's patreon.com/thephp to get extra Paul Harrell program content. That would be 52 extra videos a year. Right now, you got access to more than that. I mean, right now you get access to what, 8 or 9 videos. So far, we've been doing this, but eventually, I mean, that's what you're getting. Okay. Welcome to the program. We've got on the line Senator Linda Collins-Smith is back on the program. Linda, thanks so much for coming on today.
Hey, Paul. Proud to be with you all.
How is your Monday going? You doing all right?
Super great.
Good.
I mean, just really good and feel great today.
All right. Well, I want to remind everybody, Senator Linda Collins-Smith is, in my opinion, one of the most conservative legislators that we have, period. She is running for re-election and is up on the ballot next November. So I know, I'm sure the campaign is going as good as your Monday's going. So let's talk. I wanted to have you on because you were a witness, Senator Linda Collins-Smith, to, well, let me just say this. You know whether or not our Second Amendment rights were upheld in the last legislative session or diminished, or you have a very interesting perspective on what went down. And so now we have what would be called an enhanced carry law, and the Arkansas State Police is trying to figure out what to do about it. You have universities trying to figure out what to do about it. What can you tell us about what happened to get us to the point where we are today?
Well, Paul, I was trying not to burst out laughing or to burst out in anger. I couldn't decide which one to do. So I had to wait till you finished there. So I guess I would say, yes, an interesting perspective. I fought to defend our Second Amendment rights. The enhanced carry bill's crap, and it needs to end. I will fight for our Second Amendment rights, as I always have. I am probably one of the few legislators that have crossed aisles with the Democrats as well as the Republicans, who've worked on both sides as statesmen. We worked together to come up with legislation, common sense legislation, and we work together effectively to pass bills, laws that are enacted that, are good bills to help us protect our rights. And what I saw in this last legislative session is somewhat offensive. We did, and were successful, Paul, in doing some legislation. We look at Act 486, for instance, as one of those pieces of legislation that unfortunately some of the state police, and I can't say just all of our state police officers, so keep that in mind when I speak. I don't put everyone in the same bucket. I'm going to, I want to make that clear. A lot of folks can read legislation very well, and a lot of our officers can read it, and they understand the Constitution very clearly. So I want to say for our officers, I want to say this, take this moment to clarify that I want to help our state police have the money they need to operate. But I don't want to do it off the backs of individuals who cannot afford to defend themselves. They have the right, their Second Amendment. I want to make sure that we can all afford to defend ourselves. It's our constitutional right. So I want to make sure they understand. I'm going to help them have the money in the bank as a legislator. To make sure we do that within our budget. But I don't want to have an enhanced carry bill that people cannot afford to exercise their rights to defend themselves. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do, and I'm glad you mentioned the Arkansas State Police. I mean, they are putting their lives out there for us, and they are the troopers. I mean, they're great people. I actually have an anonymous source that tells me that the morale among the rank and file is very low right now because of the leadership. And of course, the Arkansas State Police really just is a complete failure to acknowledge Act 746 and constitutional carry right now. I want to go back to the enhanced carry. I mean, you actually did a legislative maneuver that's not done very often in an attempt to put the bill. Was it back in committee once they pulled it out? Tell me about how you were trying to make you were trying to stop what we have now, right? I mean.
Yes, what a shame. Charlie Collins has fought for years to try to get his bill to give some campus carry, and this horrible bill, this enhanced carry bill, came out of that. It was just this little bill to let to let the professors carry their guns on campus, and that's all it was. And then we get this 30-page regulations out of this bill when it's all said and done, and you have to carry a book to find out where you can carry on campus. So it's a nightmare. And so I have to tell you, I was able to get this bill off the floor of the Senate with the help of some of our legislators, even the Democrats. They sent it back into the Judiciary Committee where it should have been. We debated for a while back and forth. They could not get their bill voted out of committee, where we defeated it the first time when Jeremy Hutchinson tried to add a hostile amendment, and but it was pulled back to the floor. And it passed eventually on the floor with many amendments. Debate. We did not defeat it in the Senate, and now we know this as enhanced carry in Arkansas, that now the state police or the administration of the state police is going around trying to gain support for, or they'll just do their regulations and present it however they want to. And again, I don't want to put everyone in that same category as everyone supporting that, because not all state police do. And I have to tell you, we love our state police officers. I'm going to support them every way I can. I do not support this bill in any way, shape, or form. I want it ended.
What about so what about the state police? So they're now setting up regulations. They're now trying to. I mean, I was told that there's some new regulations that the instructors for the concealed carry or enhanced carry license are going to have to abide by. I've heard that some instructors are just wanting to quit, throw their hands up, and say, I'm not going to do this anymore because there's just some incompetency going on. So are they going to regulate this thing to the point where it's effectively not? It's very hard to get, or are they going a step further and actually spreading tentacles and trying to affect other areas?
Exactly. What are they going to do? I think that's the question. I think they are going to have so much leeway that we don't know what they're going to do. And I think that it's very concerning. First of all, they're going to have an opportunity to regulate. I think they have that authority. And it doesn't all come from the legislators. They have rights to regulate. I mean, they are the state police. And so they're going to have some opportunity to add regulations. They already have 30 pages here to present of the regulations. So you know how that goes. They can do their regulations. Then we have the laws that pass. And then what is the cost going to be? Remember, there was going to be no cost. Are they going to tell the instructors, what all are the instructors going to do? Are they going to have to go by and get educated, by the way? How much training is an instructor going to have?
Yeah, they have to pass a test as well, and if they fail it, they're done. So
sure, and they're going to have to, and by the way, where will they go get their training? And so how much more training will they have to have? How many days of training? Because if I have to take multiple days worth of training, then surely they're going to have, I would say, weeks worth of training to be so educated. Who knows what they're going to have to do? And I'm being a little bit, sarcastic, I guess.
Yeah.
But I would think that they need to be more educated than I would be.
Can you refresh?
If I'm just getting a license.
Absolutely. Can you kind of go back to the to the session because what were your negotiations or your conversations rather with the National Rifle Association? Because in my opinion, I don't know what to make of them. I go back and forth. Did they end up with egg on their face at the end of this because they supported a bill for a specific provision, which was to be able to carry in stadiums, and then immediately the one reason they were standing up there at the signing ceremony with the governor was because of that, but then immediately they file another bill that undoes that provision? What do you know about where the NRA was on this? Can you talk about that?
Well, the NRA went back and forth, and I'll be glad to talk about it because I actually, had visits with the NRA. They actually wrote a bill with me that was just a true campus carry bill. It was just black and white campus carry bill. And then they did not end up pushing that bill when they negotiated with the governor, and that's a fact. They end up doing this enhanced carry bill with the governor. They do a big public relations, big media day, and then part two comes of this bill. They undo part of the bill immediately after their big media release, and then I'm on the radio with Mr. Chris Cox. And he was the head. Surprised.
Yeah, and he was the what's his position? He's the head.
He's like number 2 of NRA.
Yeah.
One of the top persons with NRA, and I'm a lifetime member of NRA, and I'm very surprised because I've been in communications with some of their top folks with NRA and with the state of Arkansas's Anthony Roulette and others with NRA, and he's very surprised. But I can tell you what you don't want on the air is silence. And Chris Cox was silenced when I told him that we had been in communications with the NRA and warned them of this, and he was in silence.
Yeah.
And so he appeared shocked. If he wasn't, he certainly seemed to be. Mm-hmm. And he said he could not believe that the second bill came along. He could not believe it.
Yeah.
So if he wasn't shocked, he appeared to be.
Well, and it was weird because you mentioned Anthony Roulette. He was the NRA lobbyist down there at the time. Anthony was supposed to do radio with me a couple of times during these negotiations, and I could kind of smell something was going on that I didn't like. Specifically, that there was all of this. I don't know, just people bending over backwards, trying to not put certain people in positions of power in an awkward place where they really didn't support, or maybe they'd have been exposed as having to come out against the Second Amendment, or that would have been perceived that way. But after it was all said and done,
and all the dust settled, Anthony Roulette told me that the NRA was writing an op-ed that was going to go out, and it was going to be critical of what had just happened. And they were going to tell people the truth. That op-ed, to my knowledge, never ran, and I don't even know if it was ever written. That's crazy.
I don't know that it ever happened either. And I can tell you that I also let them know that some of us that truly are Second Amendment supporters and believers of our Second Amendment rights stood firm to defend those rights, to defend it. And that when the NRA sided with a negotiation of our rights, it was offensive to us. Mm-hmm. And that I also didn't want my colleagues attacked because we didn't support that negotiated bill of our, we didn't, they said, oh, you'll be all right. And I said, that didn't work.
Yeah.
That just does not work. And so we'll see what happens, but we just want to make sure that when the NRA, just like we've seen today, they go out and in the national situation, we've seen that the NRA is now trying to say, well, maybe we need to negotiate just a little bit on your Second Amendment rights when someone goes out and slaughters people because they're a bad guy. Mm-hmm. You don't go out and negotiate my rights. Just like in the state of Arkansas, when a handful of people, who I will say very boldly right now, I've had my wrist and my arm broken, and I've not been out in the field much, but you will hear from me on my Second Amendment rights. I do not like what is going on right now. And that when the time comes and I campaign, I will say this very clearly, Paul, that I will be bold. I will say it like I did when I came before, and I stood up for my Second Amendment rights as well as rights of the life of babies and other rights. They need a voice, and I am that voice for the people. And so I will name names if I have to, but I will stand once again. And so as I feel better and I am stronger and you have me again and I'm on that campaign trail, if I have to, I will name names because the people that are trying to take my rights away, you're taking them away from my children.
Yes.
You're taking them away from my state, and you're taking them away from my country, and you will not get to do that. So just know that as we come along, that I will be naming those names.
Good. We're talking with Senator Linda Collins Smith. I just have one question. You did mention that you broke your arm. You doing okay?
I'm doing okay, and I'm stronger, as you can tell, as I see this and people not paying attention to our acts and our Article 2, Section 5, the state of Arkansas's Constitution. You've got to pay attention. We cannot have tyranny, whether it's in Arkansas or the United States. If we do not have our Second Amendment rights, you're going to have tyranny, and we're not going to tolerate that. We've worked too hard in Arkansas, and so we're going to do that state by state. And so I just appreciate you for bringing attention to some of these things that are going on in Arkansas.
Well, I appreciate you, Senator Linda Collins Smith. Be safe. It's always a pleasure, and we'll do it again soon.
Thank you for everything, Paul.
Okay.
Have a great day.
Yes, ma'am. We're going to take a break. The Liberty Machine rolls on, and we'll be back in just a moment. Thanks so much for listening.
The Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
This is State Representative Dan Sullivan with a Liberty Moment. Governments do not make ideals, but ideals make governments. This is both historically and logically true. Of course, the government can help to sustain ideals and create institutions through which they can better be observed, but the source of their very nature is in the people. The people have to bear their own responsibilities. There's no method by which that burden can be shifted to the government. It's not the enactment, but the observance of laws that created the character of a nation. President Calvin Coolidge.
Paid for by Sullivan for Arkansas.
Buy, sell, and trade at Triple R Pawn in Ash Flat. Firearms, computers, sporting goods, musical instruments, tools, jewelry, and everything else you can think of. It's all at Triple R Pawn at the Light in Ash Flat. Gun enthusiasts, log on now to triplrpawn.com and browse their amazing inventory. That's triplrpawn.com. You can also call them at 870-994-PAWN. That's 870-994-7296. Let the great team at Triple R Pawn help you find what you're looking for. That's Triple R Pawn at the Light in Ash Flat, triplrpawn.com, or call 870-994-PAWN.
If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
The Paul Harrell Program.
Found it interesting in this headline I saw that's happening this week. There's apparently a Clinton reunion that's going to take place down in Little Rock to celebrate the 92 victory of Bill Clinton. And this just struck me as odd. Frank Lockwood writing that a quarter of a century after unseating an incumbent Republican president, the masterminds, as they're described here, the masterminds behind Democrat Bill Clinton's successful 92 White House bid are returning to Little Rock this week to celebrate their achievement. Now, this is what stuck out to me when I was reading this. Yeah, I understand. It was a different time back then, different political landscape. You know, if there were any conservative Democrats left, it was at least not as laughable as it is now to call yourself a conservative Democrat. You know what I'm saying? There were still people that were grasping hold of that John F. Kennedy Democratic tax policy. You know what I'm saying? That actually tax cuts give you more revenue and better economy and everything else. John F. Kennedy would never get the Democrat nomination today. But what struck me here is the masterminds behind Democrat Bill Clinton's successful 92 White House bid are returning to Little Rock this week to celebrate their achievement. And my question is this: what is different? What is fundamentally different about Little Rock now from 92? Somebody tell me. Have we had the reforms? Have we made Arkansas competitive compared to our neighbors? Have we lowered taxes? Have we had massive regulatory reform? What's different? And I say this all the time, that what we are fighting here is such an uphill battle, because anytime you try to get government to shrink, it's an uphill battle, but we're also fighting a bureaucratic system in Arkansas that is historic. It's politically unique because of who began here. This system was used as a political springboard and catapulted Bill Clinton to become the most powerful man in the free world, and then arguably the most powerful political family ever. And I just want that acknowledged. I just want it acknowledged that that's what you're there to do, is to undo some of this good old boy system. You know, this like, wow. And it hasn't been done. It hasn't been done. And that's why our whiteboard this week, I haven't covered it yet, but that's why our whiteboard this week says, to what end? To what end? When you see this, to what end, the question that I have in my head is, why do you vote for Republicans in Arkansas politics? Why are people voting for Republicans? And to what end? Are we even close to that end? Are we even close to those goals? And matter of fact, it's the opposite of what the party platform says. It's the opposite of what the principle. I want principled platform Republicans. We don't have as many of those as we need. To what end are we voting for Republicans? Back in a minute.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Administration in 1985 from Southern Arkansas University, and a master's degree in public administration from Webster University. And you're also retired as a lieutenant colonel in the military. So certainly thank you for your service. Tell us about how you wound up at Zoe Bible Church.
At Zoe Bible Church?
Yeah, Zoe, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Zoe.
My
Well, it's a Greek word which means life.
Okay.
So it looks like it's pronounced Zoe.
I was the whole ecclesia college scandal. I've been pronouncing ecclesia wrong for a long time, and somebody finally was like, "You're saying it wrong. This means church. You need to know how to say this word." Okay, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, Zoe Bible Church is the church that my wife and I founded in 1997, and so that's how we wind up there, because we started the church there. So
good.
We just love what God has called us to do there.
Okay, so today in society, you mentioned a lot of people's problem. Look. You mentioned people, what they say about the founders owning slaves and everything, and kind of using that to basically kind of discount everything that we have here today that might be good. And as I look, across, the scriptures and Bibles, you see God using non-perfect men, broken men.
Those are the only ones in the Bible,
exactly.
except for one.
Except for one, right?
Except for one.
I mean, you look at some of our best guys.
Right.
You look at David. I mean, he's an adulterer, a murderer.
Yep.
I mean, bad stuff.
Can't control his children.
Yeah, exactly. And this is lost on our generation, where they look back in America and they see all that we have today, and they can recognize injustice. They can recognize slavery, okay? Right. They can recognize an injustice like, even if we take all the history books that the liberals write about, Columbus and everything that happened, and they can't reconcile it, though. Right. Now, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I really think this is the problem, is they can recognize injustice. And what they're really seeking is the perfect approval of a holy God, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But they're trying to right the wrongs of history by editing it, getting rid of statues, in an effort to reconcile themselves. Feel free to jump in.
Going back to the founders, again, our school systems have failed our students. For the most part, our public school systems have failed them, because if you understand history in the context of what we're talking about, the United States of America, when I talk to people and I say, well, how long was slavery in America? A lot of times people say 400 years or 200 or 300 years. I said, no, it was in America, in the United States of America, for only 87 years, because prior to that, there was no United States of America prior to 1776. There was no United States of America. There was an America, but not United States of America. And as part of the British crown, the colonies, they were forced to have slaves. Now, when I say forced, I don't mean they just brought slaves and said you had to have them. But you could not, by British law, free your slaves. So George Washington wanted to free his slaves. Thomas Jefferson wanted to free his slaves, but they were not allowed to free their slaves by British law. One of the most ardent supporters of the abolition of abolishing slavery in the United States was Thomas Jefferson. And these are facts that cannot, they're just a part of history. But if you only look surface deep, then you'll only see Thomas Jefferson as slaveholder. And with respect to our young people, and, they're only hearing one part of the story. Because, if you listen to what we call the major networks, you're just going to hear all the negative about the United States of America, which is ironic because in this country, this is the only country they can say what they want to say because of the First Amendment. So those very founding fathers that they are denigrating are the reason.
Watch Paul live at paulharrell.com. It's free and available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because the Liberty Machine never sleeps.
All right, I'm probably going to have to get into this again tomorrow. Oh, by the way, real quick, before I move on to that, Inside Arkansas Politics has just tweeted that John Bozeman, Senator Bozeman,
is saying this on Roy Moore. Quote, expulsion is a hypothetical at this point, but Roy Moore should withdraw from the race. End quote. So Senator Boozman is calling on Roy Moore to withdraw from the race, according to what just came across my Twitter screen. So that's very interesting. This is on the heels of not just the allegations last week, but you had Gloria Allred. She had a press conference, was what she does with another accuser, and this time they're accusing Judge Roy Moore of attempted rape, is what they're doing. And anyway, we will see what happens. I can't believe that, and I said this last week, can you believe we live in a day where all these allegations can come out and the American people have a justification for not believing them? That's all I'm saying is we live in a time where the news can be proven demonstrably that they lie to us deliberately, and we have many, many occasions and examples, overwhelming amount of evidence. It's just crazy to me that, and this is why society suffers, is because you actually don't know who to believe. And I know with each accuser, it does. There's no doubt with each accuser, it's going to get harder and harder to say, to deny it, and that's why you're going to have people start to say, okay, he's got to go from the race. Judge Roy Moore, though, is defiant. He says that they're not true, and he says that if anyone should step down, it's Mitch McConnell, because of what he's done to the conservative movement. Anyway, that's the news. That just came across my screen, and that's Senator Boozman saying that Judge Roy Moore should withdraw from the race. Okay. I'm probably going to revisit this tomorrow or the next day. This is a huge story, and it takes a lot to dissect, okay? But it has to do with states picking up the cost for trips, for lawmakers to go on trips. And it also has to do with a no-bid contract. And this is a very detailed story by Michael Wickline here. There is no doubt, Michael Wickline here, in my opinion, has done a very good job exposing this. I think this is a huge story because it is a microcosm of what I believe is everything wrong with Arkansas government. Using legislative sleight of hand to favor private companies. Michael Wickline, 14 state representatives and a House staff member attended an Indiana-based company's educational conferences in Atlanta and Phoenix. Okay? Setting it up. 2 conferences, 2 different events, 2 different times. One in Atlanta, one in Phoenix. At the state's expense. Cost $25,000 over the past 2 years. Now, that's chump change to somebody like Jake Files. Senator Jake Files says $25,000. $25,000, that's nothing. I have my employees open up accounts to give me money, taxpayer money, for more than that. He actually did for $26,000. $25,000 is nothing, let me tell you. I'm Jake Files, see? He doesn't sound like that. The firm is Bloomington, Indiana-based. I'm sorry, the firm is Bloomington, Indiana-based Solution Tree. Okay, so the firm's name is Solution Tree, to which the State Department of Education awarded a $4 million contract without taking bids. Stop. Big story. Huge. Alarm bells. What's going on? You got legislators going on these trips the state's paying for, and then you have a $4 million contract awarded to an Indiana outfit that put on the conferences. Okay? They're the ones that put on the conferences, and there was no bid contracts.
I got to fix my microphone. Give me a second. Stay. So, what is going on here? Michael Wickline goes on. Officials for legislative agencies said they're unaware of lawmakers attending any other private company's conference at state expense in the past few years. The Atlanta conference also was attended by 4 education officials at a cost of $4,300 to the state. 4 people costing $4,300. House Speaker Jeremy Gillum. This is the man who authorized all of this state travel. And again, folks, when they read this story, you know what they thought? I guarantee you know what most of them thought? It's only $25,000. Some of them think that a $4 million contract from the taxpayers is no big deal. But I guarantee you they really did think that. It's just $25,000. It's not a big deal. This is chump change to them. And look, there are legislators that went on this conference that, have a good voting record. But this whole thing is weird to me when you go look at the legislation that prompted all of this. And Michael Wickline covers this as well. House Speaker Jeremy Gillum, who authorized the state-paid travel for his colleagues, said he learned, this is where it gets interesting, he learned about the success of a particular professional development program provided by Solution Tree in Arizona through a former Arizona House Speaker, Dave Gowan. Gowan could not be reached for comment. But Gillum goes on to say, Michael Wickline, Gillum goes on to throw Representative Bill Gossage under the bus. No, he didn't say that. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. That's what I said. I'm the one that said Gillum threw Bill Gossage under the bus. That's exactly what he did. Jeremy Gillum said that Representative Bill Gossage, a Republican from Ozark, who now works for Governor Asa Hutchinson. Yeah, that's right. See, that's one of the government jobs. So Bill Gossage resigned his post and went to work for the governor as his deputy chief of staff. I think right under Allison Williams, who is a Democrat and donates to Democrats. Do you know that Asa's chief of staff is a Democrat? I feel like we need to remind that. You know what's funny to me? I had somebody tell me the other day, this is back on their licensing boards and the dental board. Remember the dental board? We talked about it last hour and everything, and Asa not, picking who they want to pick. I have been told that there have been good quality candidates up for positions in this particular medical field or that particular medical field to go on these boards who have been denied because they found out that in the past, sometime they donated to Democrats. Isn't that funny? And yet, the governor's chief of staff donates to Democrats. Gosh, you got to love that hypocrisy. Back to this one, though. Representative Bill Gossage, according to Jeremy Gillum, quote, gave me extra confidence in my initial feelings, end quote, about the program based on Gossage's experience in the Ozark School District. Speaker of the House later said, according to Michael Wickline, that he authorized several representatives to attend the conference in Phoenix last year to help determine whether Arkansas should dive into it as a potential game changer to boost educational attainment. We got to boost educational attainment. Are we doing better in education than we were in the 1960s? I'd love for somebody to answer that question honestly. No, not that we have more programs. Not do we have more supposed solutions. No, just results. Results-oriented. 1960s, who were we pumping out? Could they do math? Could they read? Could they write? Could they show up to work on time and pass a drug test? Okay, if that data is now worse, then we need to go back and we need to do whatever we were doing in the 60s. How about that? I mean, good grief. I think you could go back and do what you were doing in the 90s and be better off than we are now. It just gets worse. Worse and worse and worse. But anyway, they were intrigued with the Solution Tree's new idea on professional learning communities. That's what they call it. The event was on professional learning communities. The Department of Education's contract with Solution Tree from August 1st, 2017 to July 31st of 2018 is for a pilot project in the Prescott School District and 11 other schools. Solution Tree, according to its website, has helped educators in kindergarten through 12th grade in schools across the world raise student achievement through a wide range of services and products, including conferences, customized school district solutions for long-term professional development, books, videos, and online courses. Last year, more than 25,000 educators attended Solution Tree events on professional learning communities. The pilot project is designed to provide professional development training based on Solution Tree's professional learning communities, a work model according to the contract. The schools will receive up to 50 days of training, coaching, and support to build and sustain a strong culture of collaboration. I mean, this sounds like the biggest bunch of corporate baloney you've ever heard. This sounds like people who've made their living off of having meetings about future meetings. This sounds just right up a politician's alley, because this is what they think their job is. Professional learning communities operate under the assumption that the key to improved learning for students is continuous job-embedded learning for educators. Website goes on, blah, 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 blah. Now, but listen to this. There's a Democrat senator from Little Rock. Her name is Senator Linda Chesterfield. She's quoted in this story. Michael Wickline describes her as a retired teacher and a member of the Senate Education Committee, said in an interview that Solution Tree made a presentation to the legislature's Education Caucus last year and, quote, "What I heard was basically team learning, and I still have not been given an answer that tells me how that's different. We've had team learning for a long time." So we have a lifelong teacher who's a senator who says, I don't know what these people do that's new. Essentially, what are they doing that's new? We've had team learning for a long time. You know, that whole thing where you got to put kids in groups now because you don't want to make the one person that's not as good as the other people feel bad about why they can't do things. In this year's regular legislative session, by the way, let me just say this. I would love to the direct correlation between how we educate our students versus how voters are educated. Think about that for a second. Let's put everybody in group. Let's get them used to group think. Let's not get to individual achievement. And maybe that's why so many of these people are so hostile when an individual speaks out in public and says, hey, the government's doing X, Y, and Z. And the group, in this case, the Republican Party wants to disinvite Jan Morgan, which, by the way, we talked about in the first hour. If you missed it, go check it out. After Jan Morgan's wildly successful event in Mississippi County over the weekend, Sebastian County has uninvited Jan Morgan to speak because that's how good it was. And that's how scared they are from individual thought. They would rather subscribe to the group think. They are an embarrassment to the concept of free speech, in my opinion. The people making this decision, not everybody in Sebastian County. We got great folks listening in Sebastian County. KFPW out of Fort Smith, 1230 AM, 96.7 FM. We appreciate you guys, but it's an embarrassment. The Republican Party being afraid of ideas and speech is what the Democrats do. It's what the left does when they don't have an argument to stand on. Unbelievable. So, back to this piece. This is where it gets interesting. In this year's regular legislative session, Representative Bruce Cozart sponsored a bill on educational professional development. It passed overwhelmingly, hardly any opposition, because they had no idea what they were voting for, which is infuriating to me, but that happens all the time. It is now Act 427 of 2017. The law states in part, quote, additional funding provided for professional development above the amount in subdivision B 5A of this section shall be used by the Department of Education for the development and administration of professional learning communities for the benefit of public school districts. Now, would you believe? Okay, so This is where it is. Joe, will you highlight, let's see, professional learning communities? That's a quote from the bill. This is what you got to figure out about this. Professional learning communities. Okay? It's towards the end of second. Okay. All right. This is the key, because the headline here is that they got a $4 million no-bid contract. Learning Tree, or whatever it's called. Is it Learning? I can't even remember. Okay, Learning Tree gets a $4 million taxpayer-funded contract. Solution Tree. So, you want to know why? Because they're the ones who've used the phrase professional learning communities. And since Solution Tree is the one that comes up with the phrase professional learning communities, the state claims that nobody else can provide professional learning communities because Solution Tree is essentially, in a weird way, using the law to write their own company into the law. Can you imagine? This is hilarious. If it wasn't so, I mean, it's like they've written their business into the law, guaranteeing them a no-bid contract because they've got the rights or the well, we're the ones that do professional learning communities, and you heard the Democrat senator say this is the same thing as just group learning. It's team learning or whatever. Well, if they'd have written team learning in there, maybe some other company would have gotten a no-bid contract. You see what they've done here? This is legislative sleight of hand at its finest right here, folks. Again, the act is 427. Go look it up. Again, it sailed through the Senate because nobody knew what they were voting for, 31-0. It sailed through the House, 90-1. The only person that voted against it was Representative Kim Hendren, Jim Hendren's father. And let's see here. During a recent meeting of the House and Senate Education Committees, a few lawmakers raised questions about the Department of Education contracting with Solution Tree without seeking bids. Charlotte Douglas of Alma told fellow lawmakers that it seemed as if the language in the law, quote, was manipulated to make sure that we gave it to a certain company. And she's exactly right. Unbelievable that this happened, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, it's not unbelievable. It's a joke. And I'm going to get to some more stuff on this, I'm sure, in the coming days about the no-bid contract and everything else, because this does also involve the education, the head of the education commissioner, Johnny Key. Johnny Key is involved here because he had to sign off on this as well in some way. He was given some pushback on this no-bid contract. It says here that Johnny Key, a former Republican state senator from Mountain Home, said in an email to this newspaper, again, this is Michael Wickline from the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette reporting this online here, arkansasonline.com, said Friday that professional learning communities weren't a new topic. He recalled legislative committees hearing a staff presentation on the topic in 2012. Quote, members of the Arkansas legislature investigated a variety of strategies and determined that PLC at work process most effectively meets the needs of schools in Arkansas. Key wrote in a letter dated May 12th to the state procurement director, Ed Armstrong. Solution Tree is the only vendor that can deliver the PLC at work process. The resources are copyrighted and the intellectual property of Solution Tree. The validity of the program would be comprised and consistent evaluation impossible if another concurrent vendor was implementing a separate program. So he's saying we got to give him the no-bid contract. This is what he said to this Armstrong bureaucrat. In an email dated June 12th to Armstrong and copied to several state officials, including Representative John Eubanks, a Republican from Paris, Key asked Armstrong to explain why Armstrong's office suggested there appeared to be a couple of other potential providers of the PLC at Work program, and for Key to identify other potential providers that the department contacted. Quote, we have determined that since Solution Tree Research developed and trademarked the professional learning communities at work, there could be no other provider that meets the research-based requirement, and it just so happens that they wrote it into the law. That's why they get the no-bid contract. Folks, it's corruption. That's exactly what it is. You can't say it. You can't if you tried to describe it any other way, it's legal. I think it's in a law, but you can't describe it any other way than corruption. We got to go. Back in a minute.
The Paul Harrell Program.
In a world full of constituents with social media accounts, bloggers just looking to increase their page views, and a talk radio host who generally is just the worst, how are Little Rock's elite supposed to conduct business with such a lack of privacy? Introducing the 1835 Club, older and more refined than other clubs that claim discretion. The 1835 Club is for seasoned political veterans that want to conduct the highest form of aristocratic business with the public's money. Are you a schemer? Do you someday want a guaranteed flow of taxpayer money to support your business? Is it your dream to see the .gov domain at the end of your business website? Don't listen to the imitators. The 1835 Club is the place where corrupt politicians and businessmen hatch their next crony schemes. At the 1835 Club, we make lobbying safe and legal. Ethics. Why, of course. All business is done in an ethical manner. Just look for the sign above the door that reads, loophole. Are you tired of the Capitol Police restricting your access to the roof after a perfectly good night of drinking? The 1835 Club has libations and a perfectly good roof. Other crony clubs that promise discretion try to lure you in by advertising bars made out of aeroplanes. Well, at the 1835 Club, instead of an airplane fuselage, we've got a space shuttle. No, not a bar. We've got an actual space shuttle that makes a daily run to the moon so members of the 1835 Club can have some real privacy away from the bloggers and taxpayers. Are you an Arkansas aristocrat? Do you want to be? It's the 1835 Club, and we work tirelessly to make sure the good old boy system remains alive and well. Join today.
Disclaimer. The 1835 Club reserves the right to deny membership to anyone who has principles. Any talk of the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution must be done in jest or, at the very least, with a condescending tone. And finally, the 1835 Club will be given a 25% commission of any agreements made between politicians and the business community.
PHP Parody.
Do you need to advertise your business product or service, but not sure what the best choice is? Folks, allow me to introduce you to Talk Radio. You're listening to it right now. Talk radio is one of the most unique mediums in all of advertising because it actually works. It gets the information you want to the people you want to get it to. And by the way, those people are educated, well-informed decision makers of their household, and most of them have disposable income. If this is a target audience for your business, then you have to consider advertising on my show, The Paul Harrell Program. We have options for most any budget and can provide you with exciting opportunities to grow your business. We can put your message across the state, or we can help you locally. Call 870-275-9755 if you have any questions. That's 870-275-9755, or visit my website, paulharrell.com, and click on Advertise.
Your values, your ideals. The Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
All right, folks, so we are wrapping things up here. It has been a really good Monday. If you've missed this program, you need to watch the whole thing. You need to listen to the whole thing. Whatever you want to do, it's all at paulharrell.com. At the top of the show, we had Jan Morgan on. She talked about how she was uninvited from the Sebastian County Republican Women's Group. And this, of course, on the heels of her amazing speech that she gave in Mississippi County. So you certainly want to get that. Also, we gave you a dental board appointment controversy update. So you want to check that out as well. There's a weird rule that's being spread, a lie that's being spread out there, that if you speak in front of a Republican committee meeting, that you can't criticize any elected official. Which, again, it proves my point. It's that they want the group think. They don't want individual thought. That's what true diversity is. To what end are we supporting the Republican Party at this point? And answering that question reveals a lot.